Right, good evening everybody, and welcome to the South Warrington Parish Council's webinar. My name's Gary Skentelbery from Warrington Worldwide, and I've been asked to chair this evening's event, which is all about the latest update on what the South Warrington Parish Council's local plan group has been doing. It consists of 6 parish councils from the south of the borough, and it's a cross-party group and was formed to support residents in their opposition to the proposals put forward by Warrington Council for future development. It is advised by a planning consultant and a barrister. The group accepts that a local plan is needed, and I think it's important at this stage to say that this is all about everybody working together. It's not political. We're all on the same team, we're all on the same page, and we're all here trying to do our best for Warrington. So please bear that in mind, particularly when it comes to asking questions later. There's been concern that the current plan, called the proposed submission version, is not sound and would be rejected by the inspector at the examination in public. Since it was written, there have been some huge changes globally, nationally and locally, making it even less sound than before. In early October, Warrington Council announced that preparation of the plan would be delayed until next summer. The group says this gives the opportunity to step back and create a new plan for a changing world, and this would benefit the whole town. Now, I'll introduce our panellists tonight. We've got Ryan Bates, who's Borough Councillor for Grappenhall and Appleton Thorne, and a member of Grappenhall and Thelwall Parish Council. Would you like to say good evening, Ryan?
Good evening, everybody. Thank you.
We've also got Andy Carter, MP for Warrington South, who's also a parish councillor at Lynn. Would you like to say hello,
Hello,
Andy?
Gary. Good evening, everyone.
We've got Joe Doherty, who's a member of Streatham Parish Council.
Evening, everybody. Thanks, Gary.
And we've got Sharon Harris, who's a Borough Councillor for Appleton, Hatton, Streatham and Walton, and a member of Walton Parish Council.
Good evening, Gary. Hello, everyone.
Good evening. Right, well, we've had a short video produced, and when you see this video, you'll probably recognise the voice of Jim Hancock, the former political editor of BBC Northwest. Now, after watching the video, we'll then start to ask for questions from the public who are watching, and we'll do our very best to answer them going through the panel. So please use the chat facility to send your questions through. So with no further ado, could we set the video rolling?
All local councils, in our case Warrington Borough Council, have to produce a local plan, which establishes where development should take place and where it should not take place. The plan also establishes where there might be opportunities for development which regenerates areas no longer suited to previous uses, and when there might be scope to improve the health and well-being of residents. We know Warrington's councillors and officers have been working hard since at least 2016 to come up with a new plan to replace the current one which was adopted in 2012. This has been hard for all sorts of reasons, including changes in government policy, Brexit, and commitment to major infrastructure investments such as HS2. It's been like trying to hit a moving target. When a detailed version of the plan, the proposed submission version or PSV, was presented for consultation early in 2019, more than 3,500 individuals, groups, businesses, parish councils and community groups from across the whole of Warrington raised concerns about the plan. 6 South Warrington Parish Councils combined to produce a considered comprehensive objection to the plan. The most obvious reason, the headline reason for the parish council's objection, was that the plan proposed a huge expansion of Warrington onto greenfield sites, many in the green belt, in pursuit of development-led growth. But it also seemed clear that the new housing proposed would not be affordable for those who cannot already access the housing market. Even more importantly, a careful analysis of the proposed plan prompted serious concerns over the way in which the development was focused away from the town centre, because this resulted in a demand for major spending on infrastructure, which was inevitably road-based. Parish councillors expressed doubt about Warrington's ability to deliver vast amounts of new infrastructure, transport, schools, health and community facilities to make the plan work. So the proposals in the plan were thought likely to prove undeliverable on the grounds of costs. The new roads, schools and other facilities required by the plan would cost so much there'd be nothing left to invest in schools and infrastructure in the older parts of Warrington. But even if by a miracle the PSV could be shown to be deliverable, it would lead in turn to concern about the environment, with issues for air quality in places already having some of the worst levels of pollution in the country. The plan paid little regard to the health and well-being of those living in less affluent parts of the borough. The parish councillors conclude that if anything, the proposals of the PSV will increase inequality across the borough and perpetuate the gaps already visible in quality of education, employment, opportunity, health and well-being. It was nevertheless our understanding from discussions with the council that despite the obvious lack of consensus over the plan, they intended to present the March 2019 PSV with little or no substantive change for examination in public by a planning inspector. Alongside that disagreement about the content of the 2019 PSV, however, external events have created a new world which is very different now to the one which existed just 18 months ago when the plan was published. And the evidence used to inform the plan, some of which goes back to 2016, is certainly less relevant and by now out of date. And just think what's happened over the last year. An unprecedented viral pandemic which has changed almost everything we do. Economic recession, particularly as a result of the pandemic. A new government with a completely different agenda towards planning and housing development, including the way in which the need for a new housing is calculated. The consequences of leaving the European Union. Decisions made by the government to commit to national infrastructure projects such as HS2 and Northern Powerhouse Rail. The emergence of previously developed sites available for regeneration, including Fiddler's Ferry and Crossfields. The scope for rail-based logistics based on the former Parkside Colliery site. The conclusions of the local transport plan, which show that transport infrastructure required for the development in the plan cannot be delivered within the plan period. The increasing focus on climate change and air quality, which is out of step with growth proposals relying heavily on road-based transport infrastructure. The need to make sure that the town centre survives, changes across the retail sector because the town centre is also about having work, health, community and educational facilities close to those who need them. Even if only some of these issues prove to have the expected impacts, the plan that's on the table now will be out of date before it's even adopted. None of this is really Warrington Borough Council's fault. In reality, they have little or no control over most of these changes. Parish councils agree that a local plan must be produced, but it thinks that the PSV is the wrong plan. In short, that plan puts the wrong development in the wrong place and would be a disaster for the people and businesses of the town. Parish councillors are encouraged by Warrington Borough Council's recent decision, announced by the leader on October the 2nd, to pause the local plan process. In the announcement, he said, "The local plan will shape Warrington's future and it's vital to get it right." The parish councils agree and think this is the time to bring forward a local plan that responds to recent changes and above all benefits the whole town. That means we need a different plan to the one on the table at the moment, a new plan which much better serves Warrington and the people who live and work here for the rest of the 2020s and into the 2030s. A new plan for a changing world. A new plan should focus more carefully planned development close to and in the centre of Warrington. A new plan should focus more on the railway links which crisscross the town centre and form the base of a sustainable transport system which does not rely on car use. A new plan, including a town centre master plan, could give the council the tools it needs to press to relocate the hospital to a new site in the town centre. Easy to access by public transport, close to town centre housing, and tied in with a new educational and training opportunities based on health sciences. Commitments in a local plan create scope for the council to use tools such as compulsory purchase to make things happen, prompting and facilitating private and public sector investment rather than just waiting for it to happen. A new hospital could be sited close to Central Station, with links into the bus station and the railway station, and access into Golden Square, perhaps using redundant retail space for some outpatient or clinic facilities. Warrington and Halton hospitals employ more than 4,000 people. It would be good for many reasons if some of those staff could live locally and work in central Warrington. The existing hospital site creates an opportunity to redevelop it for housing, affordable, rented, first-time buyers, close to the town centre and with great access to public transport. New rail infrastructure developing into the 2020s and 2030s should be focused on a transport hub around Bank Quay. The current plan already proposes this, but a new plan could take this further. Links to Merseyrail and Metrolink should be considered, using existing infrastructure with modern trains which can run on batteries or switch from diesel to electric. A regenerated Fiddler's Ferry site could host a mixed-use development taking advantage of the fact that railway lines already link it to the town centre and back to Widnes. A new plan could leave a legacy for our children and grandchildren, a town which has recognised its responsibilities for climate change and has set out plans for development which are as sustainable as possible and which improves air quality rather than making it worse. Our proposals for a new plan are just a vision and need more work. There are challenges with deliverability, but we think this is a far more realistic approach for the town as a whole, more suited to the changing world than the current plan preferred by the council. It takes advantage of existing assets, it refocuses activity on the town centre, it avoids building over huge swathes of greenbelt, it delivers the right development in the right places. Importantly, we believe that this vision would address issues of opportunity and inequality across the whole borough. Let's take advantage of the pause caused by COVID. Take a chance to step back, rethink, create a new approach, more suited to a changing world. We ask Warrington Borough Council to work with us and the local MPs and businesses and the people of Warrington to secure what's best for Warrington as a whole, not just house builders and developers. Step back, review, a new plan for a changing world.
Okay, that was the video with our very own Jim Hancock doing the voiceover there. Impressive video, that. Now it's time for people who are watching to give you the opportunity to ask questions. If you can do that using the function facility in Zoom, and we will then go around the panel and try and answer the questions for you. If you can keep the questions broad ones rather than individual to particular concerns in your own area, that would be helpful. We can't guarantee to answer all the questions we receive, but we will be making everything we're doing tonight available to be viewed elsewhere on the Warrington Worldwide website tomorrow and on the Grappenhall and Thelwall Parish Council website. So you will be able to see responses after tonight as well. So the first question that's come in, really, and I'll go through the whole panel with this one because I think it's a very important question, is why does the South Warrington Parishes group think that now is the time to review Warrington's plan, particularly just after the council have announced that they're going to delay it? If we could start with you, Ryan, on that one, please.
Yeah, thanks, Gary, and thanks for the question. I think what we see is the council almost seeing sense that they'd run out of time working on a plan, much of which started back in 2016. So much has changed just in 2020, and even before COVID, the South Warrington Parishes were arguing we needed to rethink because so much had changed, and there were so many missed opportunities in the PSV from last March. So it's great that the council have listened, not just to the South Warrington Parishes, but to just events going on in the world around us. And hopefully now they'll engage with us and take up the chance to make a better plan for Warrington.
Okay, Andy?
I think, to add to Ryan's point, and without repeating what was said there, We're in a very different place at the moment. COVID has changed the way people are operating, and it's going to change going forward how we live our lives. I think we've also had a change of government that have brought around a review of things like housing numbers, and there's a consultation taking place at the moment. And I think previously the council have felt that their plan was driven by the need to build so many houses. And actually, that's not necessarily the case. So this is a good opportunity to sit back, to review where we go with national guidance, and then for the council to look again. And I think, you know, we've since the plan has been developed, we've also seen significant changes in land that's become available. And I think that really is one of the fundamental areas for us to stop and reconsider.
Okay, Joe?
Yes, thanks, Gary. Yeah, I'll try not to repeat what's been said and what's been on the video, but I think we're at a cusp of the change, really, nationally and locally. And, you know, this process has been going on for the best part of 4 years already, and we're still well away from getting a local plan in place. But the problem I see, and I think a lot of the members see, is that it's been like shifting sands. There's been changes happening all the time, and now we're at a real crossroads. And I think councils, not just Warrington, need to really think about the future and look at more like regeneration of the town centres in particular, because of the issues that will be coming to the high streets and to those areas. So my view is very much around the fact that we have great opportunity here to rethink what's on the table and look at the opportunity, as Andy just said, about lots more brownfield sites becoming available over the medium term. Thank you.
Okay. Finally, Sharon?
Yes, I think a lot of points have been covered. We're all going to be living and working slightly differently from here on in, I think. And whatever the Borough Council comes up with as a final local plan will need to be sustainable and deliverable. And that's really what we want to work towards to help happen. And also, I think we're far more aware generally about air quality. And I think that's going to be a big thing that hopefully we'll be able to address further.
Okay. Moving on with the next question then, which follows on from what was mentioned there, is about these other development sites and brownfield sites and Fiddler's Ferry. But how long is it going to be before these sites can be built on? If we start with you this time, Andy.
That's a very good question. I had a very long conversation meeting 2 weeks ago with the site director at Fiddler's Ferry as part of my job as an MP. It's to engage with organisations like SSE who are going through the process of decommissioning and transforming that site. So they anticipate that their first level decommissioning will be completed for Fiddler's Ferry within 12 months, and then a period, probably 2 to 3 years, where they'll bring the site back into use for both commercial and then some level of housing development. Now, that's their interpretation. They're keen to engage with the Borough Council, and they told me they are now engaging with the Borough Council. But, you know, frustratingly, the current plan that we've got on the table doesn't include any land at Fiddler's Ferry, and there's a really large area of brownfield space there that could be included. So you know, the plan would extend for at least 15 years, and there certainly could be land that would come on stream for Fiddler's Ferry in that period.
Okay, Joe?
Yeah, I mean, just adding on to what Andy has said, I mean, when the original plans were put together, there were the Fiddler's Ferry, Crossfield sites, and others weren't available, and potentially the hospital site. But my view is quite clear that really, even if we today were able to have a local plan in place, it could be a considerable amount of time before real building work starts. And the likelihood is that the local plan, in whatever guise it's going to be, if it's in its original guise, it will probably be at least another 12 to 18 months, because we've already got a 6-month delay till summer. If we choose to go down a different route, obviously I think there will need to be consultation. So therefore, a new plan would be at a different date. And I would suggest that we would be looking at a date around 2022 as a start date. And then that would be over a period of minimum, I think, maximum of 15 years. 10 years is more likely, I would imagine, because really who can foresee 12 months from now, let alone 10 and 15 years. So, and what other sites will come available. So I think there's got to be flexibility in the new local plan. And I think there should be no fear about it. The technology is there to change and upgrade the brownfield sites. And clearly that will give great opportunity for local employment partnerships. And that's where I think I'll let move on to the next candidate.
Okay, Sharon.
Yeah, it's not very much to add to that, really. I think the key is about the local plan having the facility to adapt and to be flexible, because life has changed so much in the past, well, since the beginning of this year, and we're all in a world that basically we hardly recognise. Where it's going to go from here on in, we're not totally sure. But whatever we end up with, we need to build in the ability to be pragmatic enough for it to be able to change as necessary.
Ryan?
Yeah, thanks, Gary. I think the annoying thing throughout this process is many of these sites which have been mentioned, you know, Fiddler's Ferry, the hospital site, but also Cockedge, Crossfields, they've almost been like gorillas in the room, haven't they? Because it's almost as though the council just completely ignored them. And I think certainly when it comes to Crossfields, when it comes to Cockedge, Newtown House, they are strategic sites, and they are completely ignored, or it feels like they are completely ignored in the current version, the PSV version from last March. If we don't get those incorporated into the plan and use them in a really strategic way, which allows us to transform the shape of the town in terms of integrating with the existing town centre, regenerating those brownfield sites, linking into better transport with HS2, Northern Powerhouse Rail, Merseyrail, Greater Manchester Metro potentially, all these things which are possible. If we just take them on a piecemeal basis and end up developing them on a site-by-site basis, we will have completely wasted the opportunity both to transform the shape of the borough, to regenerate the centre of the town, and we will have put Greenbelt under the bulldozer for no good reason. So it's absolutely essential that the council wakes up, and hopefully they will wake up and incorporate this, you know, this handful of really strategic sites in this next version of the plan.
Okay, well, the questions are coming through thick and fast now. A question coming in here. What can be done to stop the council just pausing and not reviewing the local plan? Would you like to answer that one, Ryan, while you're on the screen?
Yeah, more than happy to do that. I mean, there is some speculation, I guess, not that it's necessarily the topic for tonight, as to why exactly the council took this particular moment to press pause. Certainly, there were some concerns around deliverability of infrastructure for the Greenbelt development in the south of the borough. And there were talks going on, quite advanced stage talks between the Borough Council, Homes England and other landowners, and they had a September deadline, and then the September deadline passed, and miraculously the council pressed the pause button. So I'm not going to jump to the conclusion that that's the only reason they've pressed pause. I really hope they're doing it for positive, constructive reasons, and we don't really know that, and we possibly never will. The point is they have pressed pause, and that's a fantastic first step. They've got nothing to lose from engaging both with the South Warrington Parishes and from other groups representing the whole of the borough. And don't be misled by the title of the group hosting tonight's session. We are representing the South Warrington Parishes, but we want the best plan for the whole of Warrington. This isn't just NIMBYism protecting our green belt. It's not our green belt, it's Warrington's green belt. And many of the suggestions in our document, which you'll have a chance to read after tonight, talks about a plan for the whole of Warrington, which covers the next 10, 20, 30 years. It'll benefit everybody, and it'll really have the opportunity to level up the town. And I think the council have got to seize that chance. Regardless of why they press pause, they've got to engage and rethink now.
Sharon?
Well, I was just going to add that I think by not just pausing, but reviewing and engaging, that the Borough Council will gain a lot of credibility and kudos for having done that. It's quite difficult for organisations, whatever that, well, for people, let alone organisations, to say, right, hold on, I may be going along the wrong path here. Let me just stop and take stock before I proceed any further. And I think it's a very important thing that they have done, and I think that should be recognised.
Joe?
Yeah, I mean, I'll add something slightly different to what Ryan and Shannon have added. I mean, one of the big issues for Warrington, and has been all the way through this process, has been the infrastructure in transport. And LTP4, which was approved by the local authority in January, which they did, in fairness, do a consultation, which they didn't have to do, but they did link it to the local plan, highlighted a very strategic approach towards Warrington's transport aspirations. But the reality of it is that we are a town set within 3 waterways, major waterways, the Ship Canal, Bridgewater Canal and the Mersey. And it's always been a great difficulty, and it's a great cost to cross those rivers and to keep the continuity between the south and the town. Not only the south, it's also from other directions as well, because there's other canals. There's the canal over in Great Sank, which I can't remember the name. I should know it, but I did some work there when I was an engineer. But so my view is I think the local authority have got an opportunity to rethink the local transport plan as well. It does need to be rethought through, because it's too far in strategic views, and there is very little deliverability with that. And without that deliverability of significant investment in the transportation, and having a complete review of this and use and utilise the rail links that we've got from Fiddler's Ferry, the Banquee, the HS, you know, it would be a travesty not to do that and have a real good think about it, and not be too led by some of the consultants who are just pushing to get things on the way so that they can potentially get their fees. That's a bit controversial, I suppose, but the reality is you need independent consultants who actually give a real view of the transport needs of Warrington. And you know, everybody who lives in Warrington knows how difficult it is to get into Warrington from any side of the town, north, south, east or west. So that, I think that is possibly, they may be now listening to those concerns.
Finally, Andy?
Look, very briefly, you know, we've talked a lot about sort of greenbelt development and building on places like Fiddler's Ferry. I think we've got to rethink our town centre as well. You know, the town centre is under huge pressure as a result of COVID. You know, retail is changing, and the opportunity to change the shape of the town centre because of some of the sites that are becoming free, and creating new homes in close to rail links, close to the bus station, I think is really, really appealing. We need more people living in the town centre to get footfall to grow in the town centre, so that businesses are based there will see that benefit. So I would really argue that we need to look at actually some of the European models, which have been really, really good in terms of driving the number of people into town centres that live and work there, because that will make a significant difference to the way that the town prospers in the years to come.
A very interesting question coming here, which I'm sure each member of the panel will enjoy answering. Why should Warrington Borough Council be receptive to the vision suggested? If we can start with you this time, Sharon.
Well, I think they've got very little to lose at this stage of the game. I can't think why they would have paused it, unless there's other things that we just don't know about, and that's entirely possible. So to pause the process without, I mean, they may have other plans completely different to what we're trying to put forward, but I think they would be extremely foolhardy not to listen to people now. They did have a huge representation to the original consultation. Over about 3,500 people wrote in, and now they apparently did take those into consideration. But I just think the world is so different. They need now to take different things on board, such as Joe has just said about LTP4, And you know, it is now is the time to sort of really realign all of these strategies. And as Andy has said, about thinking about how the town centre looks, and how the whole shape of the town will look. We don't necessarily need or want more satellite housing estates on the edge of town that just mean that we have more and more cars on the road. Warrington is known for being car centric, and that's where a lot of our problems have come from. So we need to be thinking about how we can change it. And I do think that the Borough Council have put this process in place, and to not listen now would be a great mistake for them, I think.
Joe?
Yeah, my screen just went quiet then for a second. Yeah, I mean, I think the local authority have got a great opportunity here. They've got to be realistic. The reality is construction costs are spiralling out of control at the moment nationally. So anything that is to be built is going to cost a lot more in 2 to 3 years from now. Ryan touched on the town regeneration, and I think that is the key. You've got to have a town that you're proud of, and you've got to have a town that breathes and lives for its residents. At the moment, I think Sharon just touched on it as well. I think all the panel have. It's starting to look very sad, and I think the local authority have got to have a complete holistic approach to this now. It's not just about building homes. It's about actually stepping back and having a real think and utilising everybody's expertise, not just the local authority's consultants and the officers, but people like the people on tonight. There's lots of people with lots of experience of regeneration and looking at things completely differently. And I think that's what's needed now, and it's before the horse has bolted, and there will be very limited resources from government. The country at the moment are probably at the most economic worst since the World War II. So they've got to be really realistic, and those resources that they've currently got planned for other schemes needs to be well thought out and where best to be used. And that's my kind of view. That's the reason why Warrington should start to rethink about the future.
Okay. Any other panel members want to make a point on this issue? Because I've got quite a lot of other questions coming in now.
No, I think good points have just been made there, Gary.
Okay. Right. Well, I'm not sure which member of the panel sent this question in because it says superb presentation. But anyway, superb presentation. How do we make sense? How do we make sure as many people as possible know the limits of the current plan and the opportunities of the new plan? Maybe if we can start with you with that one, Ryan.
Yeah, well, the first thing that people can do is watch this video again, share it as widely as possible. People will get the opportunity to read a very, very comprehensive document which outlines not just the limitations of the PSV, but also our constructive proposals, which, following on from the previous question, it is a constructive plan. It's a Warrington-wide plan, and it's one that we think will carry public support from across the borough, which is something which has been shortcoming so far. The most important people who we want to engage with this process are, of course, the officers and the members of Warrington Borough Council. So I would ask everybody involved on the call tonight, not just to read it themselves, but to share this as widely as possible. And the ask has got to be, please engage with this. This isn't about the number of letters coming back into the Borough Council. This isn't about the number of clicks on the video. This is about getting councillors and officers to recognise the positive, constructive opportunity we have to get this plan right for Warrington and get a plan which everybody is happy with, to create a town which everybody can be proud of. So it is about sharing, but it's about sharing with the question. We've got an ask to make, and that is to get councillors and officers to engage with this plan, regardless of the fact that it's South Warrington Parishes, to engage with the document, to engage with the ideas in it, and let's take this opportunity to get a better plan.
Andy?
Well, look, I don't want to get political, but there's going to be elections in May next year. And so, you know, the council that we have today doesn't necessarily have to be the council that we have after May.
And that, we're not getting political though. Sharon?
Well, I think it's all actually been said, because it is about opportunity, and this is a fantastic opportunity for councillors and officers to just review and engage, and basically that's what we're asking them to do. In the past, it's felt that the plan has been driven by considerations for developers and the LEP aspirations for Warrington and Liverpool and Manchester. And so I felt as though we've been driven by factors that aren't necessarily Warrington specific. So now we can just turn to what Warrington needs, what Warrington people all over Warrington need. As has already been said, this isn't just a Warrington South issue. This is a whole Warrington issue. And if we get it right, it will benefit, or if the Borough Council get it right, it will help to reduce the inequalities that are all around the town, and it will make Warrington. I think we all are quite proud to be part of Warrington and to live here, but it will really make Warrington a place to be.
Joe, do you want to add anything?
Only to say that the video has been produced by volunteers, and it's not cost a lot of money to do this, but it just shows you what content was out there to produce that video. I agree with the rest of the panel. One thing we must not forget is that we've got adjoining local authorities who also have local plans, and it's absolutely essential that we link those in, particularly the ones on our boundaries, because clearly, if you can do that, you get a growth and a sense that if you work with the other local authorities, how you can pull together a bigger delivery arm than you would have previously, particularly on procurements and things of that nature. So again, I don't know if they thought about this in the past, Warrington Council, but certainly there is models out there how you can redeliver things, and you don't have to go far to actually view them. So I wouldn't say plead, but I would say to them, really rethink, don't make it political. Think about your residents and think about the children coming through.
Okay, Sharon, you touched on it in what you were saying about this issue being for the whole of Warrington. A question's actually come through asking, is there a North Warrington working group as the issues affect the whole town? Are you able to answer
somebody
that
else? Brian, you might.
Yeah, well, I can touch on this. So the South Warrington Parishes have been very conscious of the need to get a Warrington-wide plan, and we understand that that's what the Borough Council has to achieve. And we have reached out and worked with representatives from all across Warrington where possible. There isn't a constituted group in the same way South Warrington Parishes, and that's possibly because the scale of development which the PSB involved did kind of motivate us that little bit more. But the person asking the question is absolutely right. Many of the issues affect the whole of Warrington, and actually when you start to look at the PSB closely, the potential loss of green belt is one of a number of major issues, and one of the other headline issues is the way that the plan doesn't address inequalities as much as it could do, that it doesn't get regeneration right, that it doesn't use those strategic brownfield sites. And actually there are far better ways of focusing Warrington's development over the next 15, 20 years, rather than putting a car-dependent garden suburb in South Warrington on that green belt. And it's not South Warrington's green belt. We might live closest to, but everybody benefits from that green space. And we've got to make sure that we keep that, because it's not just ours, it's future generations, and it's the whole of Warrington's. And there are better ways to drive the borough's growth over the next 10 to 20 years.
Anyone else on the panel want to answer that one?
Yeah, I mean, if I can come in on that one, Gary. I mean, whilst I'm a Lymm Parish Councillor, I'm the MP for Warrington South, and 60% of Warrington South is north of the Ship Canal. So, you know, I represent constituents who live in what is, in a lot of people's view, the north of the town. And as Ryan said, you know, there is a need to consider the broader picture around inequalities, a regeneration in all parts of the borough, and I think, you know, as we've seen so far, that a significant amount of the development is taking place under the current plan south of the Ship Canal, and I think, you know, there is a question mark around whether that's actually going to benefit all of the town in the way that it could do, and I think, you know, the plan that the Southern Parishes group have worked through really does start to balance up some of that development and allows for economic growth right across the borough, as opposed to skewing it into certain areas. So, you know, I think there isn't a constituted group, as we said, but you know, certainly people in the north of the Ship Canal are just as aware of the plan and talk to me about the plan as people south of the Ship Canal do.
Okay, cheers, Andy. Anyone else want to say anything on that one?
Yes, I think it's one of those, a moment in time where obviously the South Parishes, together with subgroups called Rethinking South Warrington Group, and there's a number of other groups, Sustainable South Warrington, have pushed our councillors to act like we are today. But the changing point, in my view, is if the local authority are going to change their views, then it's about all of Warrington perhaps looking at a generic group of people that work with the local authority from subgroups, north, south, east and west, because at the end of the day, it's one plan. So I'm certainly happy as an individual to talk to anybody and how we can support other groups to work together, because it's not about them and us, and it's around having a real strategic view and acceptance of what are we trying to achieve, and it's not just about building homes which are isolated from the town, with a town that's dead. So I think that's the key, is actually getting people from everybody, from different groups together with the local authority to facilitate and try and pull together something which is really tangible.
Could I just come in there, Gary?
Yes, of course you can, Sharon.
I just wanted to add to that point, that if there are people in other parts of Warrington that do want to contact us as a group,
Absolutely, yeah.
Please do contact us, because whether you want to work sort of on your own or whether you want to sort of work jointly with us, when I think that would be to the benefit of everybody, it means it's a stronger voice, and it means it's speaking for everybody. So, you know, the fact that we are South Warrington Parishes Group may well be a complete misnomer by the time the process is finished.
Yeah.
One question that's just come in is asking, have current Warrington Borough councillors and officers seen this presentation? I know quite a lot have actually been invited to watch this evening, haven't they? Can anyone answer that question?
Well, the short answer, Gary, is what we want members of the public to do tonight is to make sure their councillors tune in on Thursday, when there will be a dedicated session for borough councillors, officers, and also parish councillors from across Warrington. So those invitations have gone to everybody. They could have joined tonight, or they can join on Thursday. And really, that is one of the things that people on the call tonight can do to help get Warrington Borough Council to engage with this document, this process, is to come along on Thursday, watch the video, ask any questions they've got, and then obviously subsequently engage with the report. So there may be people from the Borough Council on, I'm not entirely sure tonight, but they have got a dedicated session on Thursday for them to ask any questions that they have. Okay,
anyone else want to add on that one, or ready for the next question? We'll have the next question. Right, another question's come in saying, is there a risk of delay making it all fall into the hands of the developers, taking advantage of the fact that there isn't a local plan? Perhaps we could start with you there, Andy.
Well, yes, there is a risk. If you don't have a local plan, then development can take place in a way that we perhaps wouldn't want. I have to say, there are times when, even though we've got a process of plan making taking place, that development proposals are still coming forward, as we know with what's going on in Appleton Thorn and the Stobart development. So it doesn't prevent anybody putting forward ideas. There's quite a lot of plan changes to the national planning system that are being put forward that would impact on Warrington as well. And I think that's why actually having a pause at the moment is a good thing, because those plan changes will come through and I think actually can benefit Warrington, particularly around the housing levels, that would really make a significant difference in terms of where this plan is shaped going forward.
Sharon?
Oh, sorry, I was just listening to Andy. What was the question again?
The question was about the risk of a delay in the local plan falling into the hands of the developers and them being able to get away with more developments.
Well,
with there not being a local plan in place.
Quite often. I mean, historically, Warrington has found it difficult to fulfil its housing aspirations and generally falls quite very short of the numbers that they're supposed to be building. Land that has been acquired up in Grappenhall, the housing that is coming to fruition is coming out at a very slow rate. I think developers are sort of perhaps holding back, waiting to see what happens. And yeah, I think there's a certain amount of land banking that goes on, waiting for, you know, the markets to pick up. So it's a mute one whether or not it will have a negative impact or not if the plan is delayed. I think that the benefits outweigh the disadvantages if the plan is delayed.
Joe?
Yeah, I mean, it's a very interesting question. The reality is that Warrington historically hasn't really been able to build much greater than 500 units a year of homes. The current in the south, I can only speak about the south because I've not got the detailed knowledge of the north and east and west, but certainly house builders who have currently got planning permissions in place are well behind their original targets, making the local plan subsequently well behind. In fact, if the local plan goes ahead in its current format, the reality is in the mid 5 to 10 year period of the plan, the likelihood is that Warrington would have to deliver circa 1,800 to 2,000 homes a year, which would involve probably about 20 major house builders to deliver that level. Which is, if actually, it's like trying to build Trapleford over in Burton Wood there every year and deliver it with all its infrastructure. So I think the fear factor of developers knocking on the door and demanding that we build on sites could be quite well put to bed by the planners and by the local authority themselves, and together with the support of our members of Parliament, because there is a change in the housing legislation, there is a change in planning laws. So I think that, and certainly COVID has put a spoke in everything, hasn't it? So the reality is, I think any developer knocking on our door trying to accuse us of not providing a local plan. Remember, we do have a local plan. It's still in place. It's not been the one that the High Court wanted, but the reality is things have moved on since then even. So my view is it's a minimal risk. And as Sharon said, absolutely well worth doing a proper plan that's fit for purpose rather than one that fits for purpose for developers.
Finally, on this point, Ryan?
Yeah, just quickly to add, you know, as the question or the questioner gets quite rightly, that the planning system is developer led, and maybe the government's planning reforms or proposed reforms might change that. We'll wait and see. That's not the topic for tonight, is it? We have to get the right plan, as Sharon says, and that is by far outweighs the risks of piecemeal development. But yeah, as Joe alluded to, we've not got developers falling over each other trying to take advantage of this vacuum in policy, have we? And I think what is really important, and I think what the South Warrington Parishes and your local councils have proven, is we are being vigilant. And where there are developers trying to come along and take a chance, like we saw with Stobart's, We are fighting that tooth and nail, and we will continue to do that until we've got a local plan in place, and hopefully a local plan which protects our green belt, regenerates the town centre, and carries public support.
Thanks, Ryan. Now, I'll ask this question to you to start with, Andy. It's come in asking, is there evidence of people wanting to live in the town centre, or is town centre development just a way to stop the development of the green belt?
Yeah, there absolutely is evidence of people wanting to live in the town centre. I think there are a couple of things to think about, though. We need to build different houses for different people's life stages. I think we need to build affordable housing, and the cost of certain areas of land in the town centre, for example, may bring down the price of being able to build more affordable housing. And absolutely, if you look at other towns around the UK that have gone through a renaissance, and you know, an area like Altrincham is really interesting. If you get the mix of shops and facilities right, if you create the right sort of culture in the town centre, you can really start to bring people into those towns. But the really fascinating thing is what's happened in our cities. You know, if you think back 20 years, you know, people didn't want to live in Manchester city centre at all. People drove, you know, at every opportunity to get out of Manchester. You look at what's happened with city centre living in Manchester. That's you know, really led the way in terms of doing that. So I'm not suggesting we recreate Manchester, but if you get the ambience right, if you get the feel right, people will want to live there.
Okay, Joe.
Yeah, it's again all good questions. I mean, Warrington are very fortunate to have a really good housing association. Which is Taurus, which used to be Golden Gates. So you've got a really good housing association there to support any affordable housing programs. In terms of making the town, living in the town, what you've got to do, and it comes back to what we said very early in the evening, you've got to make the town attractive, and you've got to have the facilities there. And that includes leisure, it includes green space, it includes a complete rethink. And that's what there's many examples out there about how that's been done. And with what we've not touched on, we've got one of the most successful retirement villages in the Northwest at Ryefields. That was a pioneering project by Grosvenor Housing, where, you know, so we need to think about our future as we're all getting older. As you can see, I'm losing a little bit of hair. I've gone grey, and it's about actually having enough flexibility. And the town, I mean, you know, a lot of people would die to live where they can walk and shop and go to recreation and enjoyment. The reality is there isn't much like that in the town centre. So that's where our opportunity, this is what I'm trying to get over in a very short time, is we need to completely review the town centre, a complete urban plan that brings in people with specialisms and knowledge and experience of doing this, because that money would be well spent. And actually then get away from some of this, you know, spending 90 to 100, maybe 200 million pounds on road infrastructure, which actually won't work. But anyway, I think I'm getting a bit too passionate, so I'll leave it at that for the time being.
Well, while you're getting passionate, Joe, what are your views on them planning to put 25-storey tower blocks in the town centre? Well, I mean, again, it's all about. Let's twist it a little bit. Has anybody considered what we're going to have when a 28-metre high new bridge going across the Ship Canal will do to the ambience of the area? I think it's like a lot of things. When you design something, it can't be designed in isolation. It should be designed as the whole of that area. Now, if it's of that height and it looks like a sore thumb, it shouldn't be done. It should be done, and it should be done in consultation with everybody and taking in views and the longevity of that building, because this country has already suffered many multi-storey housing has been pulled down, as we all know, in some of the cities because of the poor construction and the fact that they weren't livable. So it's about the people who live there. It's about the attractiveness of the building. It's about the surrounding area and how it fits. So again, I'd love to sit down with that person who's give that question and show them some examples of absolute fantastic design and
been there for longevity. And you go to Germany and Scandinavia, you'll see it there. But anyway, I personally haven't seen any of the plans, I haven't seen any of the drawings, but there must be something there that makes it tie into everything else. If it doesn't, then it's not right.
Okay, Ryan?
Yeah, thanks, Gary. If we just go back to the original question about whether there's an appetite for people to live in the town centre, well, developers certainly think so, and you only have to look at the number of major developments and schemes that have been brought forward just in the past 12 months. You know, as other people have said, we have to get the environment right and we have to get the economy right in the town centre. And in particular, one of my, concerns in terms of going forward is we need to be mindful of the green space and the landscaping that we keep in the town centre. Yeah. And we really want to avoid being another Manchester. I think if you go to Manchester, the architecture is stunning, but the lack of green space is a big concern. I think we've got good green space in the town centre and we can enhance that. But having said that, we've got to acknowledge the town centre is moving forward. You know, the new market, the improvements in the built environment around Times Square, Palmyra Square are fabulous. You know, we've got amazing transport links. You know, it's quite worrying that from the centre of Warrington, it's very easy to get to anywhere else in the borough. If only it were that easy for people in South Warrington to get to, you know, to other parts of the borough quite so easily. And of course, the transport links to beyond the town. It's probably one of the best connected places to live in the country. And one of the really interesting ideas that has been doing the rounds recently about sustainable planning is the idea of the 15-minute neighbourhood where people can live, work, shop and have their recreation within a 15-minute walk of their house. Warrington Town Centre is almost a ready-made 15-minute neighbourhood. So all the building blocks, or most of the building blocks, are there with a careful bit of planning and a bit more emphasis within the new local plan on getting the town centre right. We've got a fantastic opportunity. And as Andy says, we've got, you know, you can provide a residential offer for people of all demographics. We've got an economy which is already improving, although, you know, current challenges are going to be, you know, going to need some support. But there's already progress. And the local plan can build on that progress, and we can get a town centre which everybody can be proud of, the people who live there and people who live across the rest of the borough, but go into Warrington rather than going outside Warrington as our shopping or recreation destinations.
Sharon, is there anything you want to add on living in the town centre?
I was just going to say, you know, the town centre is in itself quite a small area. In that area, we've got the cultural quarter, Palmyra Square, we've got cultural things there. It has the potential to be a truly aspirational place to live and to want to be. As already been said, you can make it suitable for people of all ages, families with enough green spaces, able to walk to your doctors, to your shops, to your entertainment, you know, the Victorians designed their towns around green space, and I think we should be sort of taking a leaf out of their book. So yeah, I'm not necessarily in favour of high rise, and I also think that we have got a lot of office buildings in and around the centre of Warrington that may well be soon past their sell-by date and may need to be repurposed. Yep. So that might be something to consider as well.
Okay, right. Well, we're fast running out of time now, but what I'm going to do after I've just done some closing remarks is give each panellist 60 seconds to have their final say before we say goodnight to everybody. It's been a fascinating insight into the situation, particularly with that video, which everyone's going to be able to view again. So with everything that's going on in the world at the moment, who knows what the future holds? I mean, we're in totally unprecedented times. But if you sympathise with what this group is saying, please lobby your borough councillors and parish and town councillors, if you have them, to put pressure on the council to take account of the views that have been put forward tonight. If you want to watch the video again, you'll be able to access it on the Warrington Worldwide website tomorrow. And if you want to read reports and other information, it's all available on the Grappenhall and Thelwall Parish Council website from Friday, which will be updated after Thursday evening's webinar. So we'll go around everybody in alphabetical order this time for your final words, starting with you, Ryan.
Yeah, just before I start my closing remarks, we can make a commitment, because we've agreed this, that if there's any questions which people have asked which we haven't had time to address, we will address those, and there will be written answers to all of the questions posed tonight, both those answered live and those that we've not got around to. So you'll see that hopefully from Friday, or certainly for next week. So there will be answers to all those questions. Well, I say that I'm not actually seeing the questions, so hopefully they're all good. But anyway, in terms of my closing remarks, we've said already, some aspects of the PSV date back to 2016. And we know the world has changed. COVID-19, the economic changes around that, the economic changes around Brexit. You've also got the quite rightly increased concern around climate change and the climate emergency. Warrington Borough Council pressed the pause button. They've already done the hard part in many ways. Now's the time for them to engage. We've come up with a plan which works for the whole of Warrington, which addresses a number of issues which we think were missed, and is a set of proposals we think which will carry public support, which again is something which has been lacking so far. So please encourage borough councillors, parish councillors, town councillors to engage with this process, to get the town hall to listen to the South Warrington Parishes, to engage with our proposals, so that we can get the right homes with the right jobs and the right infrastructure in the right places. Thank you.
Thanks, Ryan. Andy?
I think as Ryan just said there, we're 4.5, 5 years down the line from when the plan making process started. And I think the world has changed. We have ahead of us 20 to 30 years to consider, and pausing now and getting the right type of plan to take us into that period is absolutely the right thing to do. Seeing the government changing the way that they're going to shape planning legislation, seeing an opportunity to really grab hold of the transport links that Warrington has, particularly from a rail perspective, and make the most of those, and thinking about how we position our town centre as a place that people want to come and live in, but also have a borough that's accessible and that has green space, and that really takes a full advantage of our unique location in the northwest of England is really important. So I really do encourage people to engage with this small period in time between now and May, lobby hard to the council. I'll certainly be doing that as the Member of Parliament, but ultimately it's down to the council and the councillors who will decide what this plan looks like, and you can influence and you can shape that.
Okay, thanks, Andy. Over to you, Joe.
Well, my closing remarks, I'm born and bred Warrington. I've lived here, I've worked here all my life and become a professional in terms of my career. Warrington's given me an awful lot. I owe Warrington everything that I have. I think there will be short-term pain for the local authority. There might be a few people who believe maybe that we shouldn't be told what to do. There's things happening in government about that at the moment, isn't there? People not accepting what's common sense, but there will be long-term gain, and I would guarantee long-term gain if the council are brave enough to accept that we're at a crossroads locally and nationally, and there is a fundamental requirement for everybody to accept this and accept change and be brave about their decisions in the future. And just sticking to a plan that seemed right 4 or 5 years ago, which has been fraught with problems ever since it was first mooted. As Sharon said earlier, 4,500, real objections to the PDO, and 3,500 to 4,000 of the PSV. So I would just hope that the local authority officers and decision makers do listen to the video, and our sincere request to engage with us and engage with everybody in Warrington as well. The North groups, we can get a North group together.
Well, I'm sure everybody wants to work together for the benefit of Warrington the best we can. Finally, Sharon?
Trouble with coming last is everybody's said it all, but this is now a real golden opportunity to reset, readjust and re-engage, not just the local plan, but LTP4 as well. They go hand in hand, and they can't be distinct. If both of them align sensibly, then I think the future for Warrington can only be bright, economically, socially, and every which way, basically. And I echo what everybody has said about, please, if you've been watching this, to lobby your councillors to engage with this process. And also, if there are people from other parts of Warrington, please, don't be backwards in coming forwards to contact this group, because we would be very happy to work with anybody. Thank you.
Thanks, Sharon. Well, I'd just like to thank all the panellists for your contribution this evening. It's been very enlightening. Thank you to everyone who's joined us. Don't forget there's another webinar on Thursday evening. And I hope everyone's found this interesting. And just for me to say good night, everyone.